Captain Thomas Reed's boots made a hollow sound as he walked across the bridge of the Resilient. The ship was old, very old. Patches of rust covered its walls. Wires hung from the ceiling. Half the screens were cracked or dark. This was not what he had hoped for when Earth joined the Galactic Federation. "Sir, the Vraylan delegates are leaving now," said First Officer Anna Wilson. She pointed to the screen that still worked. Thomas watched the small, sleek ship of the aliens pull away. The Vraylan's vessel shone like a polished gem against the blackness of space. Its smooth lines and silent engines showed just how advanced their technology was compared to what they had sold to humans. "They're laughing at us," Anna said. Her face was tight with anger. "They sold us these floating jump piles for 10 times what they're worth." Thomas nodded. He felt the same anger, but he kept it hidden better. "Let them laugh," he said quietly. The Resilient was one of 12 ships the Vraylans had sold to Earth. All of them were in the same poor shape. All of them were at least a century old. They were warships once, but now they were barely fit to fly, let alone fight. Thomas looked out the main window. The other 11 ships floated nearby. Together, they made up Earth's new defensive fleet. The ships looked sad and small against the vastness of space. 3 years ago, humans had finally created faster-than-light travel. They had reached out to the stars, hoping to find friends. What they found instead was the Galactic Federation, a group of alien species who had been traveling the stars for thousands of years. Earth had asked to join the Federation. The aliens had agreed, but with rules. One rule was that Earth needed its own fleet of ships to protect its borders. The Vraylans, one of the oldest and most powerful species in the Federation, had offered to sell some of their old warships to Earth. What they didn't mention was that the ships were nearly falling apart. The price was incredibly high, but Earth had no choice. They needed these ships to join the Federation. "Captain, we're getting a call from Admiral Blake," called out the communications officer. Thomas straightened his uniform. "Put her through." The face of Admiral Eliza Blake appeared on the main screen. She was in her 50s, with short gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Captain Reed, how's our new fleet?" she asked. "About as good as we expected, Admiral," Thomas replied. "The Vraylans didn't exactly give us their best." Admiral Blake's mouth formed a small smile. "I want you and your senior officers to return to Earth immediately. Bring all technical data from the ships. We have work to do." "Yes, Admiral," Thomas said, wondering what she had planned. 1 week later, Thomas stood in a large underground room carved into the Rocky Mountains. The place was a secret military base that few people knew about. Around him stood 30 of Earth's best engineers, scientists, and military strategists. Admiral Blake walked to the front of the room. The talking stopped. Everyone turned to listen. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, "the Vraylans think they've played a clever trick on us. They sold us their garbage and called it a fleet." She paused, looking around the room. "But what they don't know is that we've been developing technologies they've never seen before. Technologies we kept hidden during our negotiations." She pressed a button on her tablet. A hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed a sleek, black device barely the size of a coffee mug. "This," she said, "is the Silent Destroyer, and it's going to change everything." The room was quiet. Everyone stared at the small device. "What does it do?" someone finally asked. "It allows a ship to partially exist in another dimension," Admiral Blake explained. "This makes the ship nearly invisible to normal sensors. It also means that standard weapons pass right through it without causing damage." Thomas leaned forward, suddenly very interested. "You're saying we can make our ships ghost-like?" "Exactly, Captain," the Admiral nodded. "We developed this technology while trying to achieve faster-than-light travel. We took a completely different approach than what the Federation species use. They never discovered this because their evolution took them down a different technological path. But will it work with the ships they sold us?" Anna asked. "They're barely holding together as it is." A man stood up from the back of the room. He was tall and had dark skin. His name tag read Okafor, Chief Engineer. "That's where I come in," he said. "The ships they sold us are indeed in poor shape, but their basic structure is sound. We can rebuild them from the inside out, installing our own technology, while keeping the outside looking exactly the same." Admiral Blake smiled. "The Vralans and the rest of the Federation think they've given us useless junk. They expect us to struggle for decades just to catch up with their outdated technology. Instead, we're going to transform these ships into something they've never seen before. But," she raised a finger, "we'll keep the rusty, broken-down appearance." "Why?" Thomas asked. "Because, Captain Reed, the best advantage in any conflict is to be underestimated by your opponent." The room buzzed with excitement. Scientists began discussing modifications. Engineers argued about power requirements. Military officers debated tactics. Thomas turned to Anna. "This changes everything," he said. "If it works," she replied, still skeptical. Admiral Blake overheard them. "It will work, First Officer Wilson. Project Phoenix begins today." She looked at Thomas. "Captain Reed, your Resilient will be the first ship to be upgraded. I want you to oversee the process personally." Thomas nodded. "Yes, Admiral." As the meeting broke up, Thomas looked again at the hologram of the silent destroyer. Such a small device to place so much hope in. He thought about the smug faces of the Vralan delegates as they had handed over the keys to their rusted warships. They had thought they were taking advantage of humanity's desperation. They had no idea what was coming. "Let them laugh," he whispered to himself. For now, the moon Europa glowed blue-white against the massive backdrop of Jupiter. Hidden in its shadow, 12 Earth ships floated in a loose formation. From the outside, they still looked like junk, rusted hulls, mismatched patches, and faded markings. But inside, they were changing. Chief Engineer Marcus Okafor floated in the engine room of the Resilient, his magnetic boots turned off so he could reach the ceiling panels. 6 months of non-stop work had transformed the ship's insides. Where old, inefficient Vralan engines once sat, now Earth's advanced quantum systems hummed quietly. "Hand me the calibrator," Marcus said to his assistant Jack Reeves. Jack passed him the tool. "We're almost done with this section. Just the bridge systems left after this." Marcus nodded as he made delicate adjustments to the silent destroyer device. The small black box was now connected to the ship's main power core. Tiny lights on its surface blinked in a complex pattern. "It doesn't make sense," Marcus said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Despite the cool air, the Vralans have been in space for over 2,000 years. How did they miss something this fundamental?" Jack shrugged. "Different paths, I guess. They focused on energy fields. We focused on matter manipulation. They never needed to develop quantum phase technology because they went straight to plasma shields." "Lucky for us," Marcus replied. The silent destroyer wasn't a weapon in the normal sense. It didn't fire bullets or energy beams. Instead, it allowed the ship to partially exist in another dimension. This made the ship nearly invisible to standard sensors and meant that normal weapons would pass right through it without causing damage. Humans had discovered this technology while trying to achieve faster-than-light travel. They had taken a completely different approach from what had become standard in the Federation. Earth scientists called it quantum phasing. The Federation had no name for it because they had never discovered it. "All personnel, prepare for inspection. Admiral Blake will arrive in 30 minutes, announced the ship's computer. Marcus and Jack looked at each other. "We'd better finish up," Marcus said. Admiral Blake walked through the corridors of the Resilient with Captain Reed beside her. From the outside, the ship still looked like it might fall apart at any moment. Inside was a different story. "Impressive," she said, running her hand along a newly installed control panel. "How many of the original systems did you keep?" "Almost none," Thomas replied. "We kept the shell and basic structure but replaced everything else. We installed our own engines, weapons, life support, And of course, the silent destroyer. They entered the bridge. It now looked nothing like the rusted, broken room from 6 months ago. New screens covered the walls. The control stations were sleek and modern. Only the captain's chair remained from the original ship, though it had been rebuilt and improved. And the crew knows not to discuss any of these improvements with outsiders. Admiral Blake asked. Yes, Admiral. Everyone understands the importance of secrecy. Admiral Blake nodded, satisfied. She looked out the main viewport at the other 11 ships of Earth's fleet. From the outside, they all still looked like the rusted warships the Freylans had sold them. No one would suspect the advanced technology now hidden inside. Keep the exterior appearances exactly as they are, Blake ordered. Let them continue to underestimate us. Thomas nodded. Yes, Admiral. When will the fleet be ready for its first real test? Thomas turned to First Officer Anna Wilson, who had just entered the bridge. 2 more weeks, Admiral, Anna reported. The last ship should complete its upgrades by then. Good, Admiral Blake said, because we're going to need them sooner than expected. She activated the main screen. It showed a news report about the Meridian Trading Company, a Vraylan corporation that had been operating on Earth for 2 years. The company had been extracting rare minerals from Earth's crust, paying humans far less than they were worth on the galactic market. The Vraylans have refused our latest request to renegotiate the terms of the mining agreements, Admiral Blake explained. In fact, they've threatened to block our Federation membership application if we push the issue. Thomas frowned. They can't do that, can they? We've met all the requirements. They can, and they will, Blake said. The Vraylans have a lot of influence in the Federation Council. More importantly, they've sent 3 battle cruisers to Earth orbit as a friendly reminder of their power. Thomas felt his face grow hot with anger. So they sell us junk ships, steal our resources for almost nothing. And now they're threatening us with their real warships. That's exactly what they're doing, Blake confirmed. They think we have no choice but to obey. After all, what could we possibly do with our pathetic fleet of rusted warships? She smiled, and it was not a friendly smile. That's where they're wrong, she continued. In 3 weeks, we're going to teach them, and the rest of the Federation, a lesson about underestimating humanity. She turned to face Thomas and Anna. Captain Reed, First Officer Wilson, your ship will lead the demonstration. The Resilient will be our silent destroyer. Thomas stood straighter. We won't let you down, Admiral. After Admiral Blake left, Thomas and Anna remained on the bridge, looking out at the stars. Do you think we can really stand up to the Freylans? Anna asked quietly. Even with our new technology, they have centuries of experience in space warfare. Thomas thought about the arrogant Vraylan delegates who had handed over the keys to the rusted ships with barely hidden smirks on their alien faces. They think they know everything about us, he said. They think they know everything about what's possible in space. They're wrong on both counts. He sat in the captain's chair, the only visible piece of the original ship that remained on the bridge. The Vraylans sold us these ships because they thought we were desperate and naive, he said. Now it's time to show them exactly what humans can do with a little desperation and a lot of ingenuity. Anna smiled for the first time in months. I can't wait to see their faces. Around them, the Resilient hummed with power, no longer a rusted warship, but something entirely new, something the galaxy had never seen before, and it was almost ready to reveal itself. The Meridian Trading Company's main building stood tall in the center of New Denver. Its glass walls shone in the morning sun, making it look like a tower of light. Inside, on the top floor, 4 humans sat across from 3 Vraylans. President Maria Foster kept her face calm, though inside she felt angry. The Vraylans had refused all of Earth's attempts to change the mining agreements for the past month. High Counselor Drav, she said, Earth simply asks for fair payment for our minerals. The current price is 5 times lower than what these same resources sell for in Federation markets. High Counselor Drav was tall, even for a Vraylan. His skin was pale blue, and his eyes were large and completely black. He smiled, showing teeth that looked too sharp for a diplomat. "President Foster," he said, his voice smooth, "the current agreements were signed by your government just 2 years ago. The Meridian Trading Company has invested significant resources in setting up operations on your planet. Changing the terms now would be unfortunate." Maria noticed how he didn't actually say the price was fair. He only said they had already agreed to it. Earth was new to the galactic community when those agreements were signed, she pointed out. "We had no way of knowing the true value of our resources." "That is hardly our concern," said another Vraylan, Trade Minister Lox. "Perhaps humans should have conducted more research before signing." The third Vraylan remained silent, but his eyes never stopped watching Maria and her team. Maria was about to respond when her aide handed her a tablet. She looked at it, and her heart beat faster. 3 Vraylan battlecruisers had just entered Earth orbit. She looked up at High Counselor Drav. His smile had grown wider. "Is there something wrong, President Foster?" he asked, though his tone made it clear he knew exactly what had happened. "You've sent warships to Earth," she said flatly. Drav spread his long, 4-fingered hands. "Simply a routine patrol. The Federation has a duty to ensure the safety of all member worlds and potential member worlds." The threat was clear. If Earth pushed too hard on the mining agreements, the Vraylans would block their Federation membership application. They might even use their ships to force Earth to cooperate. Maria stood up. "This meeting is over for today. Earth will consider its position." As the Vraylans left, Maria's military advisor, General Dan Turner, leaned close to her. "They're not even trying to hide the threat," he muttered. "No," Maria agreed. "They don't think they need to. Call Admiral Blake immediately." Admiral Blake stood in the secure communication room beneath the Rocky Mountains. On the screen in front of her, President Foster's face showed both anger and worry. "They sent 3 battle cruisers, Eliza," the president said. "Class 4 warships with full weapons arrays. Our sensors detect they've activated their shields." "As we expected," Admiral Blake replied calmly. "The Vraylans always use force to back up their diplomacy." "Is our fleet ready?" President Foster asked. "The Resilient is fully operational. The other 11 ships will be ready within a week." "We may not have a week. High Counselor Drav has requested a video conference with Earth's full government in 3 days. I think they're planning to issue an ultimatum." Admiral Blake nodded. "Then we'll have to accelerate our plans. The Resilient alone should be enough for what we need to do." "Are you sure?" President Foster looked worried. "Even with the silent destroyer technology, it's just 1 ship against 3 of their most powerful warships." "1 is all we need for now," Admiral Blake said confidently. "Besides, Captain Reed and his crew have been training for this scenario specifically." "Very well," President Foster sighed. "But be careful, Eliza. If this goes wrong." "It won't," Admiral Blake assured her. "Operation Silent Response begins now." High Counselor Drav smiled as his image appeared on the large screen in Earth's United Government Chamber. Behind him, the other members of the Vraylan Trade Council sat in a semicircle. "President Foster, esteemed members of Earth's government," he began, "I hope you have had time to reconsider your position on the mining agreements." Maria Foster stood tall. Around her sat the representatives of Earth's nations and regions. "High Counselor, Earth has indeed reconsidered," she said. "We have decided that the current agreements must stand for now." Drav's smile grew wider. "A wise decision. The Meridian Trading Company values its relationship with Earth. However," Maria continued, "we request a gradual adjustment in pricing over the next 5 years to bring payments in line with Federation standard rates." Drav's smile disappeared. "That is not acceptable. The agreements will remain exactly as they are for the full 10-year term." Behind him, another Vraylan whispered something in his ear. Drav's expression changed. "President Foster, our sensors detect that one of your ships has left Earth orbit. Where is it going?" Maria kept her face neutral. "The Resilient is conducting routine training exercises. High Counselor, nothing that should concern you. Training. Drav repeated, clearly not believing her. With a single ship. He laughed, and the sound was not pleasant. President Foster, your fleet is barely fit for scrap. Your people can hardly operate the basic systems of those outdated vessels. What kind of training could you possibly be conducting? As I said, nothing that should concern you, Maria replied coolly. Drav leaned forward. Call your ship back immediately, or my battlecruisers will intercept it. I would hate for there to be an accident. Maria looked at him without blinking. The Resilient will continue its planned exercises, High Counselor. If your ships interfere, we will consider it an act of aggression against Earth. Drav stared at her in disbelief, then burst out laughing. The other Vralans joined in. You threaten us? With what? Your rusted warships. He shook his head. Your single ship would not last 10 seconds against one of our cruisers, let alone 3. Maria simply smiled. We'll see, won't we? Drav's laughter stopped. His black eyes narrowed. Very well. If humans need a demonstration of Vraylan power to understand their place, then so be it. The screen went dark. Maria turned to her military advisor. Is everything in position? General Turner nodded. Captain Reed is ready. The Resilient is on course to intercept the Vraylan ships. And our backup plan. In place, Madam President. Maria took a deep breath. Then may God help us all. Far above Earth, the Resilient moved through space, its rusted hull gleaming dully in the sunlight. From the outside, it looked like exactly what it was supposed to be, an outdated, barely functional warship crewed by inexperienced humans. Inside, Captain Thomas Reed sat in his command chair, watching as 3 sleek, powerful Vraylan battlecruisers changed course to intercept his ship. Status of silent destroyer, he asked calmly. Ready, Captain. Anna Wilson replied from her station. All systems green. Thomas nodded. Let's show the Vraylans what humans can do. The bridge of the Vraylan battlecruiser Dominant Force was quiet as Commander Pelk watched the approaching human ship. The vessel looked exactly as he expected, rusted, patched together, and primitive. Its engines left a visible trail in space, something no modern ship would do. They send one ship, Commander Pelk said with a laugh. And not even their best one. He shook his head, his blue skin reflecting the light of his command console. Sir, the human vessel is hailing us, reported his communications officer. Put them on screen, Pelk ordered. Let's hear what they have to say before we teach them a lesson. The main screen lit up to show Captain Thomas Reed sitting calmly in his command chair. Behind him, the bridge of the Resilient looked exactly as it had when the Vraylans sold it to Earth, outdated, with half the systems appearing broken. Vraylan vessels, this is Captain Thomas Reed of the Earth ship Resilient, Thomas said formally. You are approaching too close to Earth security space. Please adjust your course. Commander Pelk couldn't help but laugh again. Captain Reed, you seem confused. Your single, outdated vessel is attempting to challenge 3 Vraylan battlecruisers. Perhaps your sensors are malfunctioning. I suggest you return to Earth immediately. Thomas's expression didn't change. I repeat, you are entering restricted space. Change course now, or we will be forced to take action. Take action? Pelk repeated in disbelief. With what weapons? Those rust-covered missile tubes that probably don't even work anymore. He leaned forward. Captain Reed, my smallest weapon could destroy your entire ship with one shot. Do you understand that? We understand completely, Thomas replied. This is your final warning. Pelk turned to his weapons officer. Target their engines. Low power. I don't want to destroy them. Just disable their ship so we can tow it back to Earth. Let's show these humans the difference between real warships and the junk we sold them. Targeting complete, reported the weapons officer. Ready to fire. Fire, Pelk ordered. A bright beam of energy shot from the Dominant Force toward the Resilient. It was a perfect shot, aimed directly at the human ship's main engine. But something impossible happened. The beam passed right through the Resilient as if the ship wasn't there. The energy continued into empty space before dissipating. Pelk blinked in confusion. What happened? Did you miss? No, Commander, the weapons officer said, checking his console. Direct hit confirmed, but no damage registered. Impossible. Fire again, full power this time. The weapon fired again. The same thing happened. The beam passed through the human ship without causing any damage. Scan that vessel again. Pelk ordered, his voice rising. What kind of trick is this? Sir, said the science officer, our scans show. I don't understand. The ship is there, but also not there. It's as if it's partially in another dimension. On the screen, Captain Reed smiled for the first time. Commander Pelk, allow me to introduce you to the silent destroyer. On the bridge of the Resilient, Thomas felt a moment of satisfaction as he watched the confusion on the Vreeland commander's face. The silent destroyer was working perfectly. Weapons status, he asked. Quantum phase cannons charged and ready. Anna reported from her station. We can fire at any time. Thomas nodded. Target their weapons systems only. Minimum power needed to disable them without causing serious damage. Targeted, Anna confirmed. Ready to fire. Thomas took a deep breath. This would be the first real test of Earth's new weapons in combat. Fire. The Resilient shuddered slightly as the quantum phase cannons fired. Unlike the Vreeland's energy beams, these weapons were almost invisible, just a slight ripple in space that traveled from the Resilient to the dominant force. The effect was dramatic. The Vreeland ship's weapon arrays sparked and went dark. Secondary explosions rippled along its hull. Direct hit, Anna reported. Their weapons are offline. Target the second ship, Thomas ordered. Same protocol. One by one, the Resilient disabled all 3 Vreeland battlecruisers. Their weapons, shields, and engines were now non-functional. The mighty warships floated helplessly in space. Thomas opened the communication channel again. Commander Pelk, your ships have been disabled. Your weapons, shields, and engines are offline. You are now at our mercy. Pelk's face showed a mixture of shock, fear, and anger. What have you done? What is this technology? This is impossible. Not impossible, Thomas replied calmly. Just something you never discovered. While you were busy laughing at our rusted warships, we were busy improving them. You can't do this, Pelk shouted. This is an act of war against the Vreeland Empire. No, Thomas shook his head. This is a response to your aggression. You sent battle cruisers to threaten Earth. You refused fair payment for our resources. You thought your superior technology made you untouchable. He paused before continuing. We're not going to destroy your ships, Commander. That's not our way. Instead, we'll tow you back to Earth, where you'll wait while your government sends representatives to discuss new fair agreements with us. The Vreeland Empire will never negotiate with. Thomas cut the communication. Sir, Anna said, we're being hailed from Earth. It's Admiral Blake. Put her through, Thomas replied. Admiral Blake's face appeared on the screen. She was smiling widely. Excellent work, Captain Reed, she said. The President has already received a message from the Federation Council. They seem very interested in discussing Earth's concerning new technology and our membership status. The silent destroyer worked perfectly, Admiral, Thomas reported. Their weapons couldn't touch us, and our phase cannons disabled their ships without causing major damage. Perfect, Blake nodded. Tow those ships back to Earth. And Captain, make sure to go slowly. I want them to have plenty of time to think about what just happened. News of the encounter spread quickly throughout the Federation. Most species had never heard of humans before. Now, they couldn't stop talking about them. The Vreeland High Council called an emergency meeting. High Councilor Drav had been removed from his position after the embarrassing defeat of 3 battlecruisers by a single human ship, a ship that the Vreelands themselves had sold as outdated junk. On dozens of worlds, Scientists and engineers were trying to understand this new quantum phase technology that let a ship exist in two dimensions at once. How had humans, new to space travel, discovered something that the oldest races in the galaxy had missed? In the Federation Council chambers, the Premier called for calm. "We must not panic," he told the gathered representatives. "Yes, humans have demonstrated an unexpected technology, but they used it only to disable, not destroy. They showed restraint." A representative from the Zolta Confederation stood up. "Restraint? They humiliated the Vralans. 3 battle cruisers defeated by 1 ship. A ship that the Vralans sold them as junk," pointed out another representative, causing murmurs throughout the chamber. "Perhaps the humans are simply more resourceful than we expected." The Premier raised his hands for silence. "The Federation has invited humanity to send representatives to discuss their membership application. It will be decided within the week." What no one said aloud was that Earth's membership was now certain to be approved. No one wanted humans as enemies, not after what they had shown they could do with 1 ship. And somewhere in the back of everyone's mind was a troubling question. If this is what humans can do with our discarded technology, what else might they be capable of? 1 month after the confrontation with the Vreeland ships, Earth's orbital station gleamed in the sunlight. It was a busy day. Ships from a dozen different Federation species moved around the station, bringing delegates for the historic meeting. Admiral Eliza Blake stood at the large viewing window, watching as a particularly impressive vessel approached. Unlike the other ships, this one shimmered with colors that seemed to change as it moved. It was the personal transport of Premier Toll, the leader of the entire Galactic Federation. "I never thought I'd see the day," President Maria Foster said as she joined Blake at the window. "The Federation Premier, coming to Earth. Amazing what disabling 3 battle cruisers can do for your social calendar," Blake replied with a small smile. The President laughed softly. "And the trade agreements? The Vreeland signed everything this morning. Fair market value for all our minerals, technology sharing, everything we asked for." "They didn't have much choice," Blake said. "Not after what happened." They watched as the Premier's ship docked smoothly with the station. "Are you ready for this?" the President asked. Blake nodded. "Captain Reed and the Resilient are standing by." The Premier wanted to see our ships up close. "Still looking as rusty as ever on the outside?" Foster asked with a smile. "Of course," Blake replied. "Some appearances are worth keeping." The meeting room on the orbital station was large and circular. The walls were made of clear material that showed the stars outside. Earth representatives sat on one side of the table. Federation delegates sat on the other. At the head of the table was Premier Toll. The Premier was unlike any being the humans had seen before. His body was crystalline, catching light and breaking it into beautiful patterns that danced across the room. When he moved, it looked like flowing water made of glass. "Earth has surprised us," Premier Toll said, his voice somehow both deep and musical. "In my 500 years, I have rarely seen such a dramatic entrance to the galactic community." President Foster nodded respectfully. "We did not intend to cause disruption," Premier Toll. "We only wish to protect our sovereignty and ensure fair treatment. By creating technology the Federation's oldest races never discovered," the Premier said. His tone wasn't angry, just curious. "The Vreelands assured us you were centuries away from developing dimensional technology. We took a different path," Admiral Blake explained. "During our attempts to achieve faster-than-light travel, we explored many possibilities the Federation races had already abandoned." "So it seems," the Premier said. "I must ask, how many other different paths have you explored that we should be aware of?" President Foster smiled diplomatically. "That would depend on the nature of our relationship moving forward, Premier." The crystalline being made a sound like wind chimes. A laugh, the humans realized. "Well said, President Foster." The Premier's body shifted, creating new patterns of light. "The Federation Council has voted unanimously to accept Earth's membership application, effective immediately." Murmurs of approval came from the human side of the table. Additionally, the Premier continued, "We have required the Vraylan Empire to offer fair compensation for their misleading business practices regarding the warships they sold you." "That won't be necessary," Foster said, surprising many in the room. "Those ships served our needs perfectly well." The Premier's crystalline form rippled, the equivalent of raised eyebrows. "Indeed, even though they were outdated and in poor condition. Sometimes," Admiral Blake said quietly, "what appears to be a disadvantage can become an advantage if viewed correctly." The Premier turned to her. "The Silent Destroyer. A most interesting name for your technology. Not just a weapon, but a philosophy." Blake nodded. "An old human strategy. Appear weak when you are strong." "Fascinating," the Premier said. "I believe the Federation has much to learn from humanity." After the formal meetings ended, Premier Tall requested a private tour of the Resilient. Only Captain Reed, Admiral Blake, and the Premier were allowed on board. As they walked through the corridors of the ship, the Premier observed everything carefully. "From the outside, it still appears as the Vraylan sold it to you," he noted. "Yet inside, complete transformation," Captain Reed confirmed. "We kept the exterior appearance intentionally." They reached the engine room, where the Silent Destroyer device hummed quietly. The Premier studied it for a long time. "Such a small thing," he said finally, "to change the balance of power so dramatically." He turned to Admiral Blake. "You could have used this technology to destroy those Vraylan ships completely. Why didn't you?" "That's not who we are," Blake replied simply. "We wanted to defend ourselves, not start a war." The Premier's crystalline body shifted again, catching the light in new ways. "In my centuries of life," he said, "I have seen many species join the Federation. Some came as conquerors, others as refugees. Some brought great technology, others great wisdom. But few have made such an impression in so short a time." He moved closer to the Silent Destroyer device. "May I ask, are there other innovations your people have developed that might surprise us?" Blake smiled. "As President Foster said, that depends on our relationship moving forward." The Premier made the wind chime sound again. "I believe this will be the beginning of a most interesting friendship." 1 week later, Thomas Reed stood on the bridge of the Resilient, watching as his ship led a patrol of Federation vessels through Earth's solar system. It was a joint exercise, the first of many planned between Earth and other Federation members. "How does it feel?" Anna Wilson asked as she joined him by the viewport. "What?" he asked. "Going from being laughed at to being respected. All those ships out there. Some of them are from the oldest species in the galaxy, and they're following our lead." Thomas watched as the Federation ships moved in perfect formation behind the Resilient. Its hull was still rusted and patched, a reminder of how the Vraylans had tried to trick humanity. "It feels right," he said finally. "But this is just the beginning." "What do you mean?" Anna asked. Thomas smiled. "Admiral Blake told me this morning. The other 11 ships in our fleet are being assigned to different Federation patrol groups to share expertise, they say. But really, to see what else we might be capable of." Anna finished for him. "Exactly." Thomas looked out at the stars. "They're studying us now, trying to understand what other secrets we might have." "And do we have other secrets?" Anna asked curiously. Thomas thought about the secure facility under the Rocky Mountains, where Earth scientists were already working on new technologies based on what they had learned from the Federation's data archives. "I suppose time will tell," he said with a small smile. "But one thing is certain. No one will underestimate humanity again." The Resilient continued forward, leading the way, its rusted hull now a badge of honor rather than a mark of shame. The Silent Destroyer had shown the galaxy that appearances could be deceiving, and that humanity's greatest strength was not its weapons, but its ability to turn disadvantage into advantage. The stars stretched out before them, endless with possibility. The end.